Stop scrolling. This is one of those moments that feels small on the surface, but deep down, you can feel something pulling your attention back here. There's a reason you didn't skip this. Because something in your life lately has been shifting, quietly, almost unnoticeably at first, but now it's getting harder to ignore. You've been thinking differently, seeing things you used to overlook, feeling a kind of inner tension, like you're being pushed to step out of who you used to be. And it's confusing, because part of you wants to stay comfortable, to stay unseen, to keep everything private, controlled, predictable. But another part of you, a deeper part, is starting to ask something uncomfortable. What if I'm not meant to stay hidden anymore? You're not crazy for feeling this. What you're experiencing is that moment when your inner growth starts demanding to be expressed in the real world. Not for attention, not for validation, but because staying silent, staying small, starts to feel heavier than being seen. And this is where the shift begins. Because the version of you that learned to stay quiet, to blend in, to avoid standing out, was built for survival. It protected you. It helped you navigate situations where being too much didn't feel safe, where being visible came with judgment, pressure, or misunderstanding. So you adapted. You made yourself smaller when needed. You held back your thoughts. You filtered your expression. And for a long time that worked. But now it doesn't feel right anymore. Now when you hold yourself back, something inside you feels tight. When you stay silent, your mind keeps replaying what you wanted to say. When you hide, it doesn't feel like safety anymore. It feels like loss. This is the breaking phase. Not dramatic on the outside, but deeply real on the inside. It's the slow realization that the old version of you, the one built around fear, approval, and control, can't carry you forward anymore. And here, where the message gets uncomfortable, but real. You're not being pushed to perform for people. You're being pushed to express yourself honestly, even when people are watching. There's a difference. One comes from ego, the other comes from alignment. And what you're feeling right now, that pressure to stop hiding, that urge to show up more openly, isn't about impressing anyone. It's about no longer betraying yourself. Because every time you shrink back, every time you choose silence when your truth wants to speak, a part of you disconnects. And over time, that disconnection becomes exhaustion. That's why you've been feeling drained, even when nothing big is happening. It's not your workload. It's not your environment. It's the constant holding back of who you really are. Now pay attention to this, because this is where things start changing. You've probably noticed small signs. Moments where you speak up, even slightly, and afterward you feel lighter. Times where you show a bit more of your personality, and instead of things falling apart, nothing bad actually happens. Situations where you stop overthinking and just act, and it feels natural. These are signals. Not that you're becoming someone new, but that you're returning to who you were before you learned to hide. And this is where your identity starts to shift. Not into something loud or forced, but into something real. You're not here to be the loudest person in the room. You're not here to seek attention from everyone around you. You're here to be unfiltered enough that the right people can actually see you. And yes, that requires something difficult. It requires courage. Not the kind of courage that looks bold and fearless, but the quiet kind. The kind where you say what you mean, even if your voice shakes a little. The kind where you stop pretending, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. The kind where you allow yourself to be seen, without over-editing who you are. Because the truth is, the moment you start showing up as you really are, something powerful happens. You stop chasing acceptance, and you start recognizing where you already belong. And the pressure you've been feeling, It's not there to break you. It's there to push you out of hiding. So when you feel that urge, that inner pull telling you to step forward, to express, to act, to show up differently, don't ignore it. You don't need to do anything extreme. You don't need to suddenly become someone you're not. You just need to stop holding yourself back in the moments that matter. That's it. Because transformation isn't loud. It's consistent. It's built in the small decisions, the quiet shifts, the everyday moments where you choose honesty over comfort. And right now, you're standing in one of those moments. You can go back to staying hidden. Or you can take a step forward, even if it's small, and begin showing the world who you actually are. Not perfectly, not loudly, but truthfully. And if this message found you at the right time, then you already know which direction you're being pulled toward. So don't overthink it. Just start. And if you're someone who feels this deeply, who knows there's more inside you that hasn't been expressed yet, make sure you stay connected to this space. Because this is where we keep things real, grounded, and focused on growth that actually changes your life. This is your moment to stop holding back. Now move differently. And as you begin to move differently, something subtle starts to change inside you. It won't be loud at first. No sudden transformation. No instant confidence. Just a quiet shift where you start catching yourself in the act of holding back and choosing something else instead. Maybe it's a moment where you usually stay silent, but this time you say a few words. Maybe it's a situation where you'd normally overthink, but instead you act before doubt takes over. Maybe it's simply being a little more honest, a little less filtered, a little more you. And after each of those moments, you'll notice something. Relief. Not because everything suddenly became perfect, but because for once, you didn't abandon yourself. That's where real strength begins. Not in being fearless, but in being aligned even when fear is still present. Because the truth is, fear doesn't disappear when you grow. It just loses control over your decisions. And that's a completely different kind of power. You start realizing you don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need approval from every room you walk into. You don't need to perform or prove or force anything. All you need is to stop shrinking. Because shrinking is exhausting. It drains your energy. It clouds your thinking. It disconnects you from your own instincts. And for what? Temporary comfort. Avoiding judgment. Blending into spaces that were never meant for the real version of you. At some point, you start seeing it clearly. Staying hidden doesn't protect you anymore. It just delays your growth. And this is where things get real. Because once you see that, you can't unsee it. You'll start noticing every moment you compromise yourself. Every time you hold back your words. Every time you downplay your presence. Every time you choose comfort over truth. And it won't sit right with you anymore. That discomfort you feel. That's not weakness. That's awareness. And awareness is the beginning of change. So now the question is, should I show up? Now the question becomes, how much longer am I willing to hold myself back? Because time is moving, whether you act or not. Opportunities pass. Moments fade. Chances to express yourself come and go. And the version of you that you're capable of becoming. It's waiting on your decisions, not your intentions. So when life puts you in those small, everyday situations, where you have a choice to step forward or stay back, choose forward. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it's unfamiliar. Even if it feels like people are watching. Because here's something most people never realize. People aren't paying as much attention as you think. Everyone is caught up in their own thoughts, their own insecurities, their own fears. The spotlight you feel, most of the time, it's coming from your own mind. And once you understand that, something unlocks. You stop performing. You stop overanalyzing. You stop trying to control how you're perceived. And you just exist, more freely, more naturally, more honestly. That's when your presence changes. Not because you're louder, but because you're real. And real always stands out without trying. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you feel ready. That moment doesn't come. Readiness is built by taking action before you feel fully prepared. Right here, right now, you already have enough. Enough awareness. Enough understanding. Enough inner pull to know that something needs to change. So trust that. Trust yourself, even if it's unfamiliar. Because the version of you on the other side of this isn't someone new. It's someone uncovered. And once you step into that, even a little, you'll never want to go back to hiding again. So take a breath, and the next time life gives you a moment to show up differently, don't hesitate. That's your signal. Move, and when you start responding to those signals consistently, something deeper begins to settle inside you. It's not excitement. It's not hype. It's a quiet kind of certainty. The kind that doesn't need validation. Because now, you're not acting based on what people might think. You're acting based on what feels true. And that changes everything. You'll notice your energy becomes more stable. Less overthinking. Less second-guessing. Less replaying conversations in your head. Because you said what you meant when it mattered. You showed up instead of shrinking. And that alone starts building a kind of self-trust that most people spend years chasing. But here's something you need to be ready for. Not everyone will understand this version of you. Some people got used to the quieter you, the more agreeable you, the one who didn't challenge anything, didn't stand out, didn't shift the dynamic. So when you start showing up differently, it might feel like things around you are changing. And they are. But that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're no longer playing the role people expected from you. And that can feel uncomfortable at first. You might question yourself. You might feel the urge to go back, just to make things easier again. But don't, because going back will cost you more than moving forward ever will. It will cost you your voice, your clarity, your sense of self. And you've already that version. So instead of shrinking to keep things familiar, stay steady in who you're becoming. Even if it's quiet, even if it's still developing, even if it's not fully confident yet. Because confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you build by continuing even when you're unsure. And this is where your identity fully begins to lock in. Not as a performance, not as a persona, but as a grounded presence. You walk into spaces, and you don't feel the need to adjust yourself as much. You speak, and your words feel more natural. You exist without constantly monitoring how you're being perceived. That's real freedom. And it doesn't come from changing who you are. It comes from removing everything you're not. So when that inner voice tells you to express something, don't silence it. When you feel the urge to step forward, don't delay it. When you notice yourself holding back, question it. Because most of the time, it's not necessary anymore. You're not in those old environments. You're not that same version of yourself. And you don't need those same protections. You've grown. Now act like it. Not in a forced way, but in a way that honors the progress you've already made. Because you didn't come this far just to stay invisible. You didn't go through all that internal change just to keep hiding it. There's a reason you feel this push. There's a reason it keeps coming back, no matter how many times you try to ignore it. It's not random. It's your next level asking for your participation. And it won't unlock until you show up. So take ownership of that. Not in a dramatic way, but in a real, grounded, consistent way. Where you stop waiting and start moving. Where you stop analyzing and start expressing. Where you stop shrinking and start standing in your space. Even if it's uncomfortable at first. Even if your voice shakes. Even if it's not perfect. Because perfection was never the goal. Truth was. And truth doesn't need polishing. It just needs to be expressed. So wherever you are right now in your life, take this as your reminder. You don't need permission to be seen. You don't need approval to be real. You don't need the perfect conditions to start showing up differently. You just need to stop holding yourself back in the moments that matter. And if this message hit something deep in you, if you felt that quiet recognition, that inner "this is me" moment, then don't let it pass like every other time. Use it. Act on it. Even in the smallest way. Because small actions, repeated consistently, create massive shifts over time. And you're already in motion. Now it's about staying in motion. So don't go back to sleep. Don't fall back into autopilot. Stay aware. Stay present. Stay real. Because the more you do, the more everything around you starts aligning with who you actually are. And that's when life begins to feel different. Not easier, but clearer. And clarity is what moves you forward. So keep going. You're closer than you think. And if you've made it this far, then you're not here by accident. You're here because something inside you is ready. Ready to stop hiding. Ready to stop shrinking. Ready to finally show up. So now it's on you. Move like it. And if you want to keep sharpening that mindset, if you want more messages that actually push you to grow, not just make you feel good for a moment, then stay connected to this space. This is Last Call for the Chosen. And this isn't about being better than anyone else. It's about being real with yourself when it matters most. So if you're serious about that, make sure you're here for the next one. Because we're just getting started. And even after this, even after you close this video and go back into your normal routine, this message won't fully leave you. It'll stay in the background of your mind. In those quiet moments, when you're about to hold back again, you'll remember. Not perfectly, not all at once, but just enough to pause and choose differently. And that's how this really works. Not through one big decision, but through repeated awareness. Because change isn't about becoming someone else overnight. It's about catching yourself in real time and shifting direction. Again and again and again. Until one day, it's no longer something you have to think about. It just becomes who you are. You become someone who speaks without overthinking every word. Someone who shows up without constantly scanning for approval. Someone who moves without waiting for the perfect moment. And when that happens, life starts responding to you differently. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. Your presence becomes clearer. Your energy becomes more grounded. Your decisions become more direct. And people notice that, even if they don't say it. But more importantly, you notice it. You feel the difference. You feel the weight that's no longer there. The mental noise that used to drain you starts fading. And in its place, there's something simple but powerful. Clarity. You know what feels right. You know what doesn't. And you stop negotiating with yourself every time a moment shows up. That's when life becomes less confusing. Not because you have all the answers, but because you trust your direction. And trust is built like this: through action, through honesty, through showing up even when it's uncomfortable. So don't underestimate what you're stepping into right now. This isn't small. This isn't just another video you watched and forgot. This is a shift if you allow it to be, but only if you carry it with you after this moment ends. Because most people don't lack information. They lack follow-through. They feel something, they recognize something, but then they go right back to old patterns. And that's where everything resets. Don't let that be you. Not this time. You've already seen too much. You've already felt too much. You've already reached a point where staying the same doesn't sit right anymore. So honor that. Respect that version of you that's trying to grow. Because it's real. And it deserves to be acted on. So when you step back into your day, pay attention. Watch how you respond in conversations. Watch how you carry yourself in different spaces. Watch the moments where you're about to shrink and interrupt them. Not aggressively. Not perfectly. Just consciously. That's enough. Because every time you do that, you're reinforcing something new. You're telling yourself, I don't need to hide anymore. And the more you repeat that, the more natural it becomes. Until hiding doesn't even feel like an option. And that's when everything changes. So take this with you. Not as motivation, but as a standard. A quiet expectation you set for yourself moving forward. To be more honest, more present, more real in the moments that actually matter. Because those moments are shaping your entire life. And you don't need to wait for anything else. You don't need another sign. You don't need another push. This is enough. You're aware now. And awareness comes with responsibility. So step into it. Even if it's small. Even if it's subtle. Just don't go back to being the version of you that ignores what they already know. You've that. Now live like it. And if you're still here, still listening, still feeling that quiet pull inside, then you already know this isn't the end. It's the beginning of something more honest, more grounded, more real than anything you've experienced before. So stay connected, stay present, and most importantly, stay true to what you felt here. Because that feeling, that's your direction. Follow it, and as you keep following that direction, something else begins to happen that most people don't talk about. Your tolerance for pretending starts to disappear. Things that once felt normal now feel off. Conversations that used to be easy start to feel forced when they're not real. Environments that once felt comfortable begin to feel draining when you can't be yourself. And at first, that can make you question everything. You might think, why does this suddenly feel so different? But it's not sudden. It's awareness catching up with your reality. You're no longer disconnected enough to ignore what doesn't align. And that's not a problem. That's growth. Because once you see clearly, you can't go back to living unconsciously. You start choosing differently. Not in a loud way, not in a way that seeks attention, but in a way that protects your energy and respects your truth. You begin to step back from things that don't feel right, without needing to explain yourself to everyone. You start leaning into spaces where you can actually breathe, where you don't feel the need to filter every part of who you are. And slowly, your life starts to reflect that. Not perfectly, not instantly, but noticeably, because your actions are finally matching your awareness. And that alignment creates momentum. Now here where it gets deeper. You'll start realizing that being seen isn't about standing in front of a crowd or doing something dramatic. It's about being real wherever you are. in small interactions, in everyday moments, in the way you carry yourself when no one is paying attention. Because that's where your identity is built. Not in big performances, but in consistent truth. And when you live like that, something shifts in how people respond to you. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because authenticity is something people feel, even if they can't explain it. You become easier to trust, easier to connect with, easier to understand, because there's no mask to figure out. And that's rare. So don't underestimate it. Don't downplay it. Don't go back to over-editing yourself, just to fit into spaces that require you to be less than who you are. You've already felt the difference. You know what it's like to show up honestly, even in small ways. You know the relief that comes after it. So keep choosing that, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's unfamiliar, even when part of you wants to retreat. Because every time you choose truth over comfort, you're reinforcing your real identity. And over time, that becomes unshakable. Not because you force it, but because you've lived it. Now think about this for a moment. What would your life look like if you stopped holding yourself back in every situation where it matters? Not perfectly, but consistently. What conversations would change? What opportunities would open? What version of you would finally start showing up? That version already exists. It's not something you need to create. It's something you need to stop suppressing. And the more you allow it to come forward, the less effort life starts to feel. Because you're no longer splitting your energy between who you are and who you think you need to be. You become one. Clear, direct, real. And from that place, your decisions become stronger. Your boundaries become clearer. Your presence becomes something people can't ignore, not because it's loud, but because it's genuine. So don't rush this, and don't try to turn it into something artificial. Let it unfold naturally through your actions, through your awareness, through your willingness to keep showing up, even when it feels new. Because this isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming honest. And honesty, when lived consistently, changes everything. So take one more breath and recognize where you are right now. You're not at the beginning anymore. You've already stepped into something deeper. Now it's about staying there, holding that level, not dropping back into old habits just because they're familiar, but continuing forward, even if it's slow, even if it's quiet. Because slow, honest progress will always take you further than fast, forced change. So trust the pace, trust the process, and most importantly, trust yourself. Because the more you do, the more everything around you starts reflecting that trust back to you. And that's when life stops feeling like something you're reacting to and starts feeling like something you're actually living. So stay with it. You're not done yet. In fact, this is exactly where things begin to get real. And the more real it gets, the more you begin to notice something you used to overlook. You stop waiting for the right moment to be yourself. You realize there was never anything special about those moments you were waiting for. No perfect timing, no perfect setting, no perfect version of you that suddenly appears and makes everything easy. It was always about a decision. A quiet one, the kind no one else sees, but it changes everything. The decision to stop delaying who you already are. And once that clicks, even slightly, you start moving through life differently. You don't hesitate as long. You don't over-explain yourself as much. You don't shrink just to keep things comfortable. And yes, sometimes that will feel unfamiliar. Because you're stepping outside patterns that you repeated for years. But unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. It means new. And new is exactly where growth lives. So when you feel that discomfort, don't run from it. Lean into it, just enough to move forward. Because every time you do, you're proving something to yourself. Not to the world, to yourself. You're proving that you can handle being seen. That you can handle expressing yourself. That you can handle standing in your truth, even if it's not perfectly received. And that builds a kind of internal stability that can't be taken away. Now listen closely, because this part matters. You don't need to turn your life into a performance to be visible. You don't need to force attention. You don't need to prove anything through extreme actions. What matters is consistency. The way you show up in normal moments. The way you carry your presence in everyday situations. The way you choose honesty, even when no one is watching. That's what builds a real identity. That's what makes you solid. Because anyone can act differently for a moment. But not everyone can live differently, consistently. And that's where you separate yourself from your old patterns. Not by doing something dramatic once, but by doing something real, again and again. So take a look at your day. Not the big events. The small ones. The conversations. The reactions. The choices you make without thinking. That's where your life is being shaped. And now you're aware of it. So use that awareness. Refine it. Pay attention to where you still hold back and gently push past it. Not aggressively. Not forcefully. Just enough to move forward. Because this isn't about pressure. It's about alignment. And alignment feels different. It feels calm, even when it's uncomfortable. It feels right, even when it's unfamiliar. It feels like you're finally moving in a direction that makes sense, even if you can't fully explain why. That's how you know you're on track. So don't overcomplicate it. You don't need a massive plan. You don't need to figure everything out today. You just need to stay honest in the moments that show up. And trust that those moments are enough. Because they are. They're building something in you, piece by piece, decision by decision. Until one day, you look back and realize you're not the same person anymore. Not because you tried to change everything at once, but because you stopped ignoring the small things that mattered. And that's how real transformation happens. Quietly, steadily, without needing to announce itself. So wherever you're at right now, take this as confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. Even if it feels slow, even if it feels uncertain, even if it feels like no one else notices. It still counts. It still matters. And it's still building something real inside you. So keep going. Keep choosing truth. Keep showing up. Because the more you do, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, it's no longer something you're working on. It's just who you are. And when that day comes, you won't need to question yourself anymore. You won't need to look around for validation. You'll just know. And that kind of knowing changes everything. So don't stop here. You've come too far to go back. Stay with it. Move forward. And let the rest unfold exactly as it's meant to. And now, as this moment settles in you, there's nothing more you need to chase, fix, or force. Just this awareness that something in you has already shifted, even if quietly. You don't walk away from this as a different person overnight, but you do walk away with a different level of honesty inside you. And that's where everything begins. Because from here, every small decision you make starts carrying more weight. Every moment you choose truth over hesitation, you strengthen something inside yourself that no one else can build for you. And every time you stop yourself from shrinking, you remind yourself who you're becoming. Not someone new, just someone more real. So don't rush to define it. Don't rush to explain it. Just live it, step by step, moment by moment. And let your actions speak louder than your doubts ever did. If this message reached you at the right time, then you already know what you need to do next. Not everything at once. Just the next right step in front of you. That's enough. And if you want to stay connected to more moments like this, where you're reminded to come back to yourself, to grow without noise, to move with clarity, then stay here with Last Call for the Chosen. Because this isn't about hype. It's about awareness and the quiet return to who you really are. Now go forward and don't abandon what you felt here.